He opened his eyes. The first feeling he noticed was the numbness in his legs. There was a brief area of extreme pain, like a wall, directly beneath his inner thighs, and everything past that was null. Curiosity forced him to look down, and as you could imagine, he was filled with regret from doing so. A concrete chunk had broken from the pillar he was laying against, and it had fallen on top of him. He saw the steel bracing sticking out like quills, and several of them pierced into his flesh. One particular impalement had bone protruding from the wound, shattered like jagged rocks. Besides the pain, amnesia was a horrible nuisance that forced Marcus into a fit of multitasking, dealing with the pain and trying to remember what was happening and who he was. His name was Marcus. He remembered that much at least. He licked his dry lips and smiled. Smoggy air moved between his teeth, and he noticed that several of them were missing, busted out from whatever put him into the situation. He coughed and sputtered. A tooth emerged from his throat, red from soaking in blood. How long had he been unconscious? Help! Marcus tried to speak, but words just barely emerged. Marcus vomited. The sounds of his excretion echoed into the darkness. The acid from his stomach poured onto his shirt, soaking it. The smell was awful to him. Marcus didn't cry, though. No. Instead, he breathed as deeply as he could. He was relieved to find that there was no pain in his lungs. Of course, there was no pain past his thighs either, but he knew that that was a lie that his body came up with. Hello? Marcus managed his voice, strong. He pushed it out of his mouth, and he knew that his ability to speak was good. The idea of his silence was an obstruction that he had cleared. Quiet. Marcus heard nothing. Something. It came close to him. Footsteps. A person. Marcus could hear the breathing of another human being. Please, help me! Marcus called out. The person stopped directly beside him. Even in the darkness, Marcus could make out their bare feet, covered in scratches and dirt. They kneeled down, and Marcus barely put together a face. A beard, bushy eyebrows, a muddy face, and teeth that had clearly been ripped out. The bearded man said nothing as he went through Marcus's pockets and pulled out anything. After a few moments of scrounging, the man walked away without his voice being heard at all. Marcus had been pillaged with no help to be found. There was a spark inside of Marcus. He couldn't quite pinpoint what it was yet, but he knew it was going to be destructive. I hate. Marcus laughed. Hate you. Then Marcus realized what this was. Nothing was right. Nothing was moral. Everything was wrong. There was a disturbing thought in Marcus's head. He wondered what exactly it was that he would die from first. Obviously, his legs are horribly wounded, but would they be enough to kill him? Would he still live? Or would it not be the loss of blood, but instead infection? Outside organisms crawling and wiggling and feasting on his flesh, and the twisted malformation of his flesh, and... No. I can make it out of here. There's someone waiting for me. Marcus coughed. It was more of a wheeze with violent spasms between calm breaths. Was there actually someone waiting for him? He couldn't remember. In the darkness, he heard screams. Was that the man from before? Marcus couldn't tell. He never heard his voice. This voice, whoever it was being torn to pieces. There was a gurgling, before one loud yell, then it was silent once again. Lena? Marcus spoke aloud, ignoring the death sentence that lurked in the darkness. He at least knew the person that loved him's name started with an L. A malformed beast that resembled a burly wolf casually approached him. Marcus didn't even notice the creature until it was already biting into his mangled legs. The creature had eyes on both sides of its head. It looked directly at Marcus while it feasted. Are you mocking me? Marcus asked the creature. A flap of skin from the side of its head perked up, like an ear responding to his voice. As it realized its food was not fully dead yet, it opened its mouth fully, revealing unimaginable things. It seemed as if it possessed several mouths, and each one had a different method of digesting. Each set of teeth all led to the same stomach. Marcus saw a myriad of body parts within the teeth, from eyeballs to tongues, from toes to entire human arms. The way it stored food in its cheeks reminded Marcus of a squirrel, or even a snake when it devours a rodent whole. The monster, the correct word for it, Marcus decided, was moving closer to his face. What a horrible way to die. Lexie. That was his lover's name. He knew for sure. He said her name over and over again, wanting it to be the last thing on his mind when he died. The creature was shot. Its dark red blood mixed with the vomit on Marcus's body. Its carcass fell limp onto the floor without so much as a whimper. Marcus's brain did a full spin inside his head. Everything was fading. Hello? A voice called. Hi there, Marcus responded. A woman kneeled down, just as the bearded man from before did. Her face, underneath the stained blood and dirt, was exquisitely beautiful. Or perhaps Marcus just thought it was, as the life began fading from him. The woman gasped as she saw Marcus. Lexie? No, I don't know anybody named Lexie. Are you a kind person? Marcus asked the woman, looking through her face. Oh, you're almost as beautiful as my Lexie. Marcus came up with a face and put it onto the blurred image of Lexie he had in his mind's eye. Is there anything I can do for you to make you more comfortable? There is one thing, Marcus remembered. His will to speak to the woman kept him going, just long enough. Would you go to my cabin? It should be directly south of the entrance to this sewer. You'll hit a path, and that'll take you directly there. Could you go find Lexie? Tell her that I love her. Maybe take care of her. Make sure she's at peace, Tell her that Marcus loves her very much. Don't blame yourself, Lexie. Marcus smiled at the woman with pleading eyes. She nodded. I'll do that. Please don't worry. Marcus let his grip go. It felt nice to finally not have to worry. The stress of staying alive was so cumbersome. Thank you so much, miss. Thank you so much, miss. Thank you so much, miss. Thank you so... Marcus died with tears dripping into his lips that curved into a smile. He couldn't remember what Lexie looked like. It was the only detail he couldn't recall. Regardless, she was the last thing on his mind. It was everything that killed him. Penny did as Marcus asked. She wasn't a monster, not yet. This world had not corrupted her. It was oddly calming, walking down the path. It felt safe, like she had a goal that she knew she could complete. The only idea she worried about currently was telling this Lexie that Marcus had passed. She couldn't help but wonder why he was down there. It doesn't matter anymore anyway. Penny just planned on delivering the message and leaving. The cabin was right where he said it would be. It was in magnificent shape, given the circumstances. The sunlight broke through the dying trees in just the right way that it looked pretty. Penny envied them for living in such comfort amongst so much death in the wasteland. Penny stopped at the door and knocked. Moments passed, and it was silent. The idea of Lexie being dead immediately went through Penny's mind, although she had to be sure. The door opened easily. It was light, and one of the hinges was broken. Penny assumed the lock didn't even work. She stepped into what seemed to be a living room, with basic wood flooring and walls. No furniture besides one bed. Other than what seemed to be a bathroom and a storage room, this was the only room in the building. "Lexie?" Penny called out in a brash whisper. Penny was confused. Penny's mouth fell open as a dog emerged from underneath the one bed. Gray tangled fur, long nose, muscular legs, and a tail that had been cut short by what seemed to be a non-medical amputation. The dog growled at Penny, but stopped when Penny lifted her hand to the dog. "Lexie?" she asked, and the dog responded by tilting its head and becoming silent. "Lexie? Come here." Penny patted her lip and smiled. The dog bounded over to Penny and stopped dead in its tracks directly in front of her. The dog immediately became melancholy as it smelled Marcus on Penny. A faint whimper emerged from its nostrils. Penny sighed. "You're Lexie, huh? Well, I did tell Marcus I would take care of you." She spoke to the dog, and it looked directly at her as if it understood. "Let's go, then."